guys, welcome to another huge episode of Triggered. I hope you all had a great weekend. It's great to be with you here in studio live. There's so much to get into today, and maybe, if you guys are lucky, I'll even take a few questions later in the program. So, last night, the Grammy Awards apparently turned into an anti-ICE rally. I wouldn't know, because you wouldn't catch me dead watching that crap, just like I wouldn't watch any of the movie ones. But nonetheless, I've read and heard all about it. Meanwhile, the actual adults in the room are dealing with real issues, unlike people in Hollywood and most of the music industry. Iran is finally coming to the negotiating table because this administration projects strength and not weakness. Don Lemon got indicted and arrested. I know that's going to make a lot of the people in the chat very happy. And Bill Gates may be much closer to Russia than we've ever realized. I will explain all of it in great detail later. So guys, make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing so you never miss one of these episodes. Share it with your friends. Hit the like button right now. Do it throughout the thing. Send the copy of the link to your friends via text. Download the Rumble app. All of these things really help get the message out. Remember, if you missed the show here on Rumble, go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'll put the show up there right after we're done here. If your friends get their podcast that way, get the word out that way. So for all of the top headlines that we cover on the show, go over, check out my news app, MXM News, like minute by minute, Mike, X-Ray Mike, where you can get the mainstream news without the mainstream bias. And of course, don't forget about our brave sponsors for having the guts to support this program. So, guys, be sure to check out my friends over at the Birch Gold Group. Gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. 700%. That's pretty amazing. And smart Americans are diversifying a portion of their savings into precious metals with the Birch Gold Group. So, see if holding gold in a tax-sheltered retirement account is right for you as well. Birch can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Just text my name, Don Jr., D-O-N-J-R, to the number 989898 to receive your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. Again, text Don Jr. to the number 989898. And also, I was up in D.C. last week with Bettina for the premiere of Melania. From Amazon MGM Studios comes a new film that takes you inside the 20 days leading up to the 2025 presidential inauguration through the eyes of the First Lady herself. History's biggest stage, on the biggest screen, in theaters now, so be sure to check it out. So, a lot going on, guys. So much to talk about, but we will get into the top headlines. As I discussed a couple seconds ago, last night, the music industry held their annual award show, the Grammy Awards, which is supposed to be about music, shockingly. But nothing is what it is. Just like ESPN's supposed to be about sports, but, alas, it's about politics. But instead of being about music, they turned it into a rally against immigration enforcement. In her acceptance speech, Billie Eilish said, quote, "No one is illegal on stolen land," which, honestly, no one really knows what that means, but they say it a lot. It becomes a talking point. But I guess that's sort of the point, right? No one knows what it means, but they just keep saying it anyway. But think about that for a second. Our ICE agents, the men and women who are out there every single day removing gang members, drug dealers, human traffickers, convicted murderers from our communities, and shockingly, Hollywood hates them. Wonder why that is, guys. Huh. And she wasn't the only one. Super Bowl halftime reported that Bad Bunny opened his speech by saying, "Before I say thanks to God, I'm going to say ice out." I guess we're going to take a lot of advice from Bad Bunny these days, but check it out.
Say thanks to God. I'm going to say ice out.
Yeah, that's the Bad Bunny that I guess is doing the Super Bowl halftime show, apparently doing it in like trans dress or like cross dressing or whatever, because apparently uh, football thinks that's a great idea. Hey, what do I know? But if I was in charge of their marketing department, I'd probably want to rethink that. But, you know, it is what it is. But here's what really gets me about all this. Most of these people live in gated communities. They're worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. They have private security everywhere they go. They will likely never have an illegal immigrant MS-13 gang member living next door to them, unless maybe they're P. Diddy. They will never have their kids going to schools that are overwhelmed and underfunded because of illegal migrant crisis. They don't live with the consequences of the policies they advocate for. And yet, they stand up on that stage in their designer gowns and they lecture the rest of America about compassion. It's not just hypocrisy, guys. It's believing that they are above the entire system itself. But thankfully, we're seeing actual leadership on the world stage. Over the weekend, my father confirmed that Iran is seriously talking with the United States about a nuclear deal. We've deployed a massive naval armada to the Persian Gulf. It's clear that all options are on the table and the United States has maximum leverage. Check this out.
Give us an update on where your thinking is right now with Iran, if you have made a final decision on what you want to do.
I mean, I certainly can't tell you that, but we do have very big, powerful ships heading in that direction, as you know. I can't tell you, you know.
Okay.
But I hope they negotiate something that's acceptable.
Saudi Arabia's defense minister reportedly said that if the U.S. backs off a strike, that will only embolden Iran. What's your reaction to that, sir?
Well, some people think that, and some people don't. If you could make a negotiated deal that would be satisfactory with no nuclear weapons, they should do that. But I don't know that they will. But they are talking to us, seriously talking to us.
Listen, I think he's telling the truth. I think that's real because he was in a really good mood yesterday. I was with him at Dan Scavino's wedding. You know, the guy that controlled the Twitter handle for so long, long time Trump guy, one of the best guys in the world. And he seemed to be in a really good mood. You should have heard my father's wedding speech. It was actually pretty epic. Sort of glad we weren't in a church for that one, but let's just say it was really, really funny. But meanwhile, we're now in day 3 of a partial government shutdown that is entirely due to another failed stunt by Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Now, they have no real leverage, but they've been holding things up because they want to defund and dismantle ICE. But don't take my word for it, guys. Here are House Democrats in their own words.
CBP did not exist prior to 9/11, prior to the Post-Patriot Act. Period. The DHS was a creation. We can take enforcement. We can ramp it down significantly. We can put a lot less money into this kind of cruelty, and we can actually hold people accountable for what they are doing. We do not need a military force enforcing immigration law. It is a civil system. So I think Democrats are pretty united on that. What they choose to call it may be a little confusing to people, but I do think that we are at a place where finally we can demand in a unified way real reforms and completely dismantle ICE and CBP and DHS. I'm not sure that DHS really needs to exist.
They don't want agents wearing masks for their own safety. They want a long, drawn-out process for judicial warrants before arresting criminals, illegal alien criminals. They want no cooperation with local authorities or jails. Basically, they want to make it impossible for ICE to do its job. Funny, in the chat right now, someone's saying Iran saying Durka, 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 which is a really solid Team America World Police reference. So props for whoever that was. I didn't catch who it was, but pretty funny in the chat. In Philadelphia right now, the district attorney there is comparing ICE to Nazis. I'm shocked, guys. So original. It's almost like they just go to the same playbook, literally for everything. Everyone they don't like is a fascist or a Nazi or both. At least Scott Jennings was able to call him out.
Hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades. We will find your identities. We will find you. We will achieve justice.
Yeah, this is highly inappropriate. No prosecutor in America should be doing that, let alone yelling at and about law enforcement officers. Look, this debate, there's a lot of words and a lot of talking around it. We have existing federal immigration law. We have law enforcement agencies, duly sworn officers that have been ordered by the president to go out and enforce those laws. That's really all the debate is about here. And in most jurisdictions, these laws are being enforced quite amicably. There are no incidents. Transfers are happening. People are being deported that have a reason to be deported. It's just in this specific jurisdiction, people have decided that federal immigration law shouldn't apply. And now you have sort of radical Democrats around the country ramping this up even further by claiming that they're going to hunt down federal law enforcement officers as though they were Nazis. You have Eric Swalwell in California promising a reign of terror if he becomes governor against anybody who's ever worked for ICE.
I mean,
This kind of division and this kind of threat against people who basically signed up to enforce the law and do public service, it's outrageous. And any Democrat ought to be able to sit here and say, this is way over.
And by the way, speaking of Philadelphia, a city that has struggled under pro-criminal policies that have made parts of the city totally unsafe, well, they just put out a new recruiting video for their sheriff's office. And let's just say, folks, it's not exactly going to deter any criminals. As someone who went to Penn, I lived in Philadelphia for my entire college experience. This is one of those like Braveheart, right? This would only encourage our enemies to attack. Check this out. Antonio, something over here said, yeah, stupid. I think that's, what is this feminized BS? Ivan the Horrible. Redger has a complicated handle, and they got paid that day. Yeah, you've got to be kidding me. This is a recruiting video. How embarrassing. What the hell is wrong with people? Yes, I agree with all of you on this one. In the words of my father, they're not sending their best. I'm not sure who that's designed to recruit, but I can tell you it's probably not recruiting effective law enforcement. And it's probably making criminals say, you know what? Our job is going to get a lot easier. But this is business as usual in left-wing precincts who think federal law is optional and that they don't have to comply with the law at all. And speaking of which, Don Lemon was arrested on Friday night by the FBI in Los Angeles after being indicted by a federal grand jury in Minnesota for conspiring to violate the religious freedom rights of a church congregation in St. Paul, Minnesota. You've seen the video. You know he was doing it. And we've shown you. Lemon embedded himself with a group of anti-ICE agitators who stormed City's church during a worship service and then invaded the place, and even went after young children in Sunday school. Now, the left is screaming First Amendment and freedom of the press, but the facts tell a very different story, guys. Just like you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, you can't agitate and pretend you're a journalist at the same time. You can't be in there blocking children and parents in Sunday schools, scaring the hell out of them, interrupting a service, right? Don't forget, they arrested women for praying, not yelling at people, certainly not cornering them, for praying in front of abortion clinics. Didn't stop anything from happening. Those people were arrested. Many of them were thrown in jail for years. Why would Don Lemon be held to a different standard than that, given the facts and the circumstances that are on video before our very eyes? A grand jury in Minneapolis looked at the evidence and said that there's probable cause for these charges. The indictment alleges Lemon attended a pre-operations briefing with the protesters, which he admitted to on tape. He told people not to reveal the target location. Huh, that's interesting. Target location. Doesn't seem like that's surprise journalism there. That's just being an agitator. And then physically obstructed congregants who were trying to leave the church, which is also illegal. Calling yourself a journalist, and in all fairness, listening to Don Lemon, I don't think anyone actually thinks he's a journalist and probably has never been a journalist, or claiming that you're simply committing journalism is not a defense. He was an active participant who embedded himself with the mob and joined their cause. Here's the latest on the letter of the law from Todd Blanche.
That Mr. Lemon crossed the line from reporting on what was going on to criminal activity.
Conveniently missing from what you just showed, George, is the appellate court and a judge on the appellate court who said just a few days later there was clearly probable cause and it wasn't even a close question. So, and by the way, a grand jury, which is what our system has set up to determine whether probable cause exists, concluded that there was probable cause. That indictment is now public. Everybody in this country can pull it up and read for themselves and see what the grand jury found that Mr. Lemon did. I am not going to comment on the charges specifically because it's not appropriate. But it's interesting that we talk about the First Amendment right. You have a right of freedom of religion, which is just as important as any other right that we have. And George, I don't know if you've watched the videos or read the indictment about what it's alleged that Mr. Lemon did, but if anybody in this country thinks that that is, quote, independent journalism, I would like to have a conversation with you. Now, he's obviously has a very good lawyer. He can raise defenses in court to the extent he wants to, but nobody in this country should feel comfortable storming into a church while it's ongoing and disrupting that church service and thinking that we're just going to stand by and let that happen, because there is a statute that does not allow that to happen. It doesn't matter if you happen to be a former CNN journalist. It doesn't matter if you're a rioter. It doesn't matter if you think you're peacefully protesting. You are not allowed to do that.
Like this one. Don Lemon is an insult to Don Trump's first name. I think that's fair. Also on Friday, we had an additional release of a massive trove of documents from the Jeffrey Epstein files. We're talking about 3.5 million pages total now. Photos, video, court records, FBI documents. Now, there are photos of former Prince Andrew. There are references to Bill Clinton. Epstein invoked the Fifth Amendment on every question about Clinton during his 2026 deposition. And even Bill Gates is being forced to not respond after Epstein apparently memorialized something really interesting in an email. An incident where Gates apparently got an STD from Russian hookers while spending time with Epstein. And then is apparently asking about how to slip antibiotics into his then wife's Melinda's drink to stop her from ever getting whatever it is that he got, and perhaps from ever even knowing. The email suggests that Bill Gates had requested medication for a sexually transmitted disease to give to his now ex-wife, Melinda French Gates. The email also references someone named Boris, who allegedly worked for the Gates Foundation, and he allegedly helped get drugs and helped facilitate illicit trysts between the Microsoft founder and Russian girls. Now, Gates in a statement denied the whole thing, but here's was Gates several years ago when he was asked about his relationship with Epstein.
You know, I had dinners with him. I regret doing that. He had relationships with people he said, you know, would give to global health, which is a interest I have. You know, not nearly enough philanthropy goes in that direction. You know, those meetings were a mistake. They didn't result in what he purported, and I cut them off. You know, that goes back a long time ago now. So there's nothing new on that.
It was reported that you continue to meet with him over several years, and that, in other words, a number of meetings. What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, and, you know, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy. Very proud of the work of the foundation. That's what I get.
Comfort and Joy on here says, Comfort and Joy 22 said, Melinda knows Bill's a pervert. I think she knew because you saw the reaction in some of her commentary years ago. Seems like she knew what was going on, was probably paid handsomely to be quiet about it. But what's interesting about a lot of this drop is, and again, if I'm going to be honest, if you actually knew Epstein in the 90s or whatever, a billionaire in New York, I mean, most of those people knew each other, whatever it may be. But the amount of people that kept communicating with him after he was a convicted sex offender, that's really scary, okay? You may not know, you may just say, hey, the guy's weird, whatever it is, you end up at the same parties. Not condoning the behavior, but saying, maybe you get it. Maybe you just say, okay, he's just a weirdo. Everyone has their thing, I guess. But these powerful people, billionaires, people making decisions that can affect the world, continuing to hang out with the guy, continuing to communicate with him, continuing to socialize with him, to go to his houses and parties and invite him places after he went to jail as a convicted sex offender is absolutely insane. So there's a lot going on here, and I know they're doing Trump's mentioned in there, mentioned in third parties by people who have literally been put into psychiatric wards. No one likes to talk about that disclaimer, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's total bullshit, okay? We all know it. We all know that if he was actually in there before, it would have been the only name that leaked over the last few years. But Democrats are going to do their thing, and I think it's backfiring spectacularly because whether it's Bill Gates or Reid Hoffman or the entire Democrat funding cabal, they all seem to be in there. And lastly, we got a massive jury verdict in a landmark case of a detransitioner who sued his doctor in Westchester County, New York. Check this out. All right. Sorry, video's not going, but basically, a jury last week awarded a victim $2 million after it found her psychologist and surgeon and found them liable for medical malpractice related to a mastectomy at age 16. This is what the victims of these atrocities need. If you were manipulated, and this is something I put out on Twitter the other day, if you were manipulated and coerced into transitioning by doctors or other professionals, and now greatly regret the decision, it's time to go after these sickos. They all belong in jail, but until that happens, there's at least recourse in civil court. Go after these people. This became a money-making closet operation. The stats, the studies, all showed how bad it was, and it didn't matter because they were doing the work of the woke and radical left. But if one person can win $2 million, and there's a 90-something% recidivism rate where people regret having done that, pushed by teachers, pushed by woke academics, pushed by woke doctors who are going to financially benefit by these BS operations and or putting them on medicine for the rest of their lives, go after them. By the way, where's Hollywood's outrage about these abuses? They seem really outraged about ICE, but these abuses, you'd think there'd be something there. It's sort of odd that the trans thing is kind of rare. Really small, tiny percent of the population, and yet in Hollywood, it's almost like there's one in every household. But while Hollywood elites are cursing at our border agents on live TV, while Democrats are shutting down the government to protect illegal immigration, they're very quiet about these atrocities. Why is that, guys? Why would they stay silent? Why would they stay silent about mutilating children who mostly ultimately regret those decisions, who were mostly coerced or told they had to do that? Their parents were told their children are literally going to die if you don't mutilate their genitals and put them on drugs for the rest of their lives. Democrats and their allies want violent criminals to walk free while innocent people are attacked. They're funneling your tax dollars to terrorists overseas and retaliating against whistleblowers who try to stop it. But Tim Walz thinks ICE is the problem? I don't think so. In California, they quite literally shut down entire neighborhoods while they burnt down, and then attack the residents when they ask why the permit process is taking so long for people to rebuild their homes. It's complete insanity. This isn't a political party anymore. This is a left-wing movement dedicated to the destruction of everything that made America great. They don't care about free speech. They don't want secure borders or free markets or merit-based immigration. They want to rig the system as much as possible to try to claw back political power and to never, ever give it up again. But the good news is this, guys. Americans are waking up. The Trump administration is fighting back. The fake news is finally being exposed, and we're delivering big wins. So maybe with that, we'll turn to some of the questions, get some good stuff in there, because, we got a lot of the guys repeating a lot of the same stuff that I'm just not going to respond to. Furries or all of it. Yeah. Can someone explain the furry thing to me? I don't, I never really got it, but I have heard, even from people close to me, that there's a real thing still in schools, and, you got to pretend that your classmate is a cat. I've even heard from people who had litter boxes and water bowls put in their classrooms to make sure that those children felt comfortable. Wow. It's a sad state for our country, for our civilization, that's real. See, I never went to school. Honestly, you're probably better off. At this point, going to one of these woke schools, you're better off not going to any school. Doug Sully, 412. Winter fishing. I have not been doing a lot of fishing. I've been working a lot, but I did get to go out on Saturday right before sort of this cold front in Florida. I mean, when I say cold front, I don't mean like, just lukewarm. I mean, it was in the 20s here, which for Florida is insanely cold. Iguanas are falling from the trees in South Florida. Stuff was frozen. It was sort of amazing, but I went out. I took Patino, went out with my buddy Black Tip H, great fisherman. Some of you may follow him on YouTube and otherwise. And caught some sharks off the beach. The Black Tip migration is coming through right now, so that's always pretty fun to do. Caught them, took a quick picture, released it back into the water, posted that on my Instagram over the weekend, so that was kind of fun. Good to get out, even if it was just for a short time, and even if it was pretty darn cold. Flamriat, what do you think about the 24/7 gaslighting? Well, it's getting old. I think it's been going on for a very long period of time right now. And I think we're all onto it. It's not going to stop them from doing it because they have nothing else. I mean, that's the reality, right? They're going to keep gaslighting because they have nothing else. It's not like they have facts or like science, other than like fake science that they can call on. So they're going to keep doing the gaslighting and trying to get people outraged about nonsense. That's all a diversion tactic from what they're actually trying to do. They want you to talk about things so they can get away with it, okay? A lot of the riots in Minnesota are designed to create outrage for people who aren't paying attention and understanding that it's totally, a coordinated attack, that it's basically an insurgency over there. They're trying to take away from the fact that people are investigating billions of dollars of fraud happening in America. Money that, again, has been sent overseas to Somalia and Al-Shabaab, probably back-channeled back to Democrat fundraising apparatus. So the gaslighting is designed as a distraction from the atrocities that are actually going on in our country, and it needs to stop. They're not going to stop it. We just need to call it out. Again, it's why I tell you guys, like, share, subscribe, send this to your friends so they can see it. Yaholo, did Don Lemon interview you? You know what? Not recently, but he has. I've done Don Lemon's show. Sorry, dropped my nicotine pouches. He has. I've done his show in the past, back, I guess, years ago when he was on CNN. So, not recently, not since he totally lost his mind, but I have definitely done that in the past. Red Belly 56, Obama is the architect of the destruction of this country. I agree with that. I mean, I think Obama was the one that created so much of the adversity, created so much of the racial strife that's in there. I'm not sure for what purpose, but I think what we can all understand is the entire apparatus is just designed to make you hate America so they can change it entirely and, bring forth, their communist BS. Melanie 1776 exposed the huge fraud in California. Nick Shirley is there right now. Yes, I know Nick's over there. I know just even his teaser videos have gone through the roof. I don't think he's even gotten into the details of what they discovered, but I imagine Minnesota, smaller state, smaller economy, much lower population than places like California and elsewhere. I imagine this fraud is not just about daycare centers. I'm sure that's happening in California too, but I imagine when you get into the details of all of the things that are being defrauded, all of the places that are doing it, you're going to see hundreds of billions of dollars found that could have been gone to educating our kids, taking care of our vets, fixing our military, so much that's just absolutely disgusting. So I'm just glad that someone like Nick opened the door. I hope they find a lot more, and I hope it forces other people to look into it. I know, I'm not involved. I'm totally on the outside, but just even at Dan Scavino's, wedding yesterday, I was there with Kash Patel. I saw Pam Bondi. I saw a lot of the people that are part of the administration. Obviously, Dan's part of the administration. It sounds like, they are definitely working all these things. And again, unfortunately, unlike with the Democrats where you'll just get people to blindly go along and everyone does it, these guys have to follow a process or these things will get thrown out. The fraud will continue. The perpetrators won't be brought to justice. So they just got to do it. They got to do it right. And I think they're going to do that. So I look forward to all of that stuff happening in the not too distant future. Will Obama get investigated for fraud? I hope so. I mean, I think, again, he's the architect of so many of these things. I think it's a real problem. And I imagine he was involved in much, much more as it relates to this. Mr. Peabody, thanks for coming to Maine. My pleasure. I love it up there. I have a hunting camp up in Maine. I was up there this fall. I haven't been, Maine right now. My snowmobiles are still in New York at my cabin. So haven't got a chance to go up there recently, but I was up there this fall. I love the Maine woods. It's just, about as remote as you can get in the lower 48. So it's great. Hey, Don Jr., love watching Kai golfing. Anyway, I could get some. Oh, sorry. Lost you in the feed. It's going a little too fast. Could I get some golf lessons from her? 755 Braves. We could try to work on that. I don't know. She's busy right now. She's not playing any golf. She had a wrist surgery. She's, a great little golfer, an incredible athlete. It was also great. I watched my younger daughter, Chloe, today competing in her little, school thing, and she won every foot race, even against the boys, which was kind of amazing. Imagine that doesn't last forever. She's only in 4th grade, but it was really cute. So yeah, both my girls are great athletes. Also why I push for, against this insanity of, men playing in women's sports. But Kai will hopefully be back on the golf course soon, but she's so strong, but also still just so little that she really wore out some stuff in her tendons, had to have surgery a couple weeks ago to get that in there. And right now she's having even a hard time just even moving her hand much. So she's got to do the PT, the time. What's great about Kai, she's just such a hard worker. She's going to do all of that. And I imagine she'll be back in no time. She's an alpha. Flimriot, thank you. Yes, she is. That one's a little baby axe murderer. Real great competitor, but she takes it all so seriously. So she's going to be on there. But right now she's not playing any golf. She can't. She's got to be. She's got to do what she needs to do to get her wrist back in shape for next golf season. So I'm just praying it goes well, and I know she'll put in the work. So I'm sure it'll be fine. Let's see. Maine is beautiful. Yes, it is. Let's see. Let's see. Reining in rogue judges. I mean, the problem with this, they put in judges. Our judges follow the Constitution. Their judges follow whatever the Communist Manifesto is. That is, whatever the Democrat Party is right now. And so, oftentimes these are lifetime appointments. They're there forever. So what we got to do is work hard, and we actually start pressuring Republican in the Senate to start confirming our people. Do you believe it? It's been over a year. They haven't confirmed everyone because they, blue slip stuff. The Democrats would get rid of this stuff so quickly to get whatever they wanted over way, but the Republicans play by the norms. The Democrats will break them, just like the filibuster. But this is what we deal with, guys. We don't have that many people that are all that strong and actually willing to fight. But they do have to go after those judges who are clearly breaking the law, that are overturned every time. But their idea is to slow play it, kick the ball down the road. If we can waste a few months, prevent things from happening, we can prevent the administration from being as effective as it could be, and that's their goal. cultural Marxism is dangerous, YOLO. Yep, it is, and that's exactly what we're going to get if we don't keep fighting and staying in this. What's your IQ? Very high. Very, very high. Like maybe even 4 digits. Just kidding. But I'd say it's high enough. I don't know. I feel like I function at a pretty high level, whether it's business or politics or whatever, and doing pretty well on my own against people that do nothing but this stuff. So let's see. You go moose hunting ever? That's big in Ontario. Yes, I do. I love moose hunting. I do it. I've actually had a great moose hunt up in Maine a couple of years ago after putting in for that tag for like 25 years. Also, I go up to the Yukon pretty regularly. I have an outfit. I'm a partner in, up there. They do moose hunts, stone sheep, the bears, caribou, all that kind of stuff. And so, I love that part of the world. That's actually in Canada, on the Canada side, up in the Yukon territories. So that's sort of my other happy place, just to get away and just be in the woods. So definitely love the moose stuff. Shot a great moose this year, actually, with my bow and arrow. It actually sucks because my buddy actually videoed the whole thing. It was pretty awesome. I mean, shot a big bull moose with a bow and arrow, called it into about 16 yards, and the moose is a 2,000-pound animal, so they're pretty big. The next day, we were going up to try to find my buddy one because I tagged out, and I think I talked about it on the show. We had that boat mishap, literally rolled a boat in the river. All our gear was just gone, almost froze, after almost drowning in the middle of nowhere. We were luckily able to get a fire going, and it sort of worked out well, but it was a close call. But literally lost the video camera that had this incredible footage. It was so cool. I mean, we saw it from a ways off, snuck into a tight spot. We're able to call him to a spot that, literally had a 16, 17-yard shot. Made a perfect shot with the bow and arrow. It was very cool. Moose are majestic. Don't think I'd shoot one, just deer and elk. Listen, moose are definitely majestic. Elk are majestic. Deer are majestic. They're also really good eating. Incredible protein, very low fat, totally natural. So it's a serious hunt. It's a lot of fun. I recommend you check it out. I mean, and more importantly, perhaps than even the moose or the hunt, just the territory that it brings you into is just so awesome. It's just such a great place to get away. Sowing Patriot, bighorn sheep in Nevada. I haven't done bighorn sheep in Nevada. I've done bighorn sheep in Colorado. I do love my sheep hunting that, gets you into some serious, let's call it off-piste, backcountry stuff. So I love the sheep hunts, just a rifle, a backpack for, 10 days, 2 weeks. Just an awesome hunt, but I have not done it in Nevada yet. I would love to if I can ever draw a tag there. That would definitely be, a bucket list type of hunt. Have you ever hunted in Newfoundland, Canada? 2014 leapfrog. Yes, I have actually. I shot woodland caribou up there. One of the first hunts I did, basically started working one of the first sort of, it's called reasonably expensive hunts that I did and saved up for years. Went up there, fished for Atlantic salmon and got some caribou up there. So Newfoundland's awesome. Definitely love it. Oryx is great too, yes. More 62, any hunting in Greenland yet? No. I've been to Greenland, as many of you saw. The sort of first expeditionary force to Greenland, checking that out. So that seems like it's going well. I've had a muskox hunt, literally up in the Arctic there, booked for a while, and I just literally have been too busy. I haven't been able to make it out there, but I'd love to get up there, do the muskox thing, do the, reindeer, which is basically a different kind of caribou that they have up there. Definitely want to get back to go to Greenland, do some hunting, or fishing. I don't know how much fishing there is in Greenland. I know there's good fishing in Iceland. I'm sure there's some, but it's a cool place. I want to get back probably right now. It's just a little too sensitive politically. Don't know you create headaches, but definitely looking forward to getting up there and doing that because that muskox just seems like an adventure, on dog sleds, on the ice, a cold one. Junior, you're busy. When's the wedding? Comfort and Joy. Thanks, Comfort and Joy. I really appreciate that one. I don't know yet. We're probably thinking, late spring, maybe early summer. Really excited about it. Tina's just been awesome. Just, someone I have so much fun with. Just an incredible woman. So looking forward to doing it. Haven't finalized or figured it out just yet. but would love to do it, and we'll make that happen again. Kathy Deaton, eating clean. Yep, all the game meat stuff. I mean, that's a big part of it. Just, fresh stuff, not stuff that's jacked up with shots and steroids and whatever else, antibiotics and all that kind of stuff. So, when you shoot a moose and you got 2,000-pound animal, you're left with quite a bit of meat. And so I know, me, my son Donnie especially was really like, even at 16, is just sort of like a health nut and, literally measures his macros every day. And, he eats a lot of that stuff. So, this year I got a moose and I got an elk. So I got plenty of game meat, and actually a buffalo. So I got plenty of game meat to go around for the year, for the whole family. So we're trying to eat healthy whenever we can. Let's see. Congrats to Dan Scavino. Yep, Dan is the best, man. One of the original loyal guys. My dad was talking about it in his speech. It was pretty funny. At the wedding, he was like, and I know Dan's a good guy because when the FBI came knocking, so many people said, we'll tell you whatever you want. Just tell us what we need to say and leave us alone. He goes, and Dan said, well, I think he used the full words, but Dan said, and F you guys. I'm not giving you, shit. Obviously, there was nothing to give. If there was, as the most investigated person in the history of the world, Donald Trump, there was nothing to give, but they were trying to break people and get them to lie or whatever it may be. And then he looks over at me as the whole crowd's laughing, and he looks at me and goes, yeah, you did the same. That was good. Because there was nothing to give. But there were a lot of people that would have just folded, give them whatever they want just to be left alone. And that's how our government and our legal system has been weaponized against the people. So Dan is just a great guy, an awesome American, great patriot, and I was really happy to be able to be there for his wedding. Do you even Cecil, bro? We're not going to go there, folks. We're not going to go there. But that's actually pretty funny. If you know, you know. Just watch the Milani movie. Love and support everything your family stands for. Thank you. Nuclear energy versus solar. Red Belly 56. Honestly, listen, I think solar could be there for some things to supplement it. I think you probably need something, especially with new battery technology. But I think someone wise once basically said solar's been the next big thing for the last 30 years. So, nuclear is the way to go with the stuff that they're working with, SMR technology, the small modular reactors. You can do it clean and safe. It doesn't have to be Fukushima. You don't have to build it on a fault line. We now have the technology to be able to do these things safely, especially the small modular reactors and some of them that burn, not hot enough that you can actually worry about sort of meltdowns. I mean, nuclear is definitely, such a no-brainer. It's been so victimized and bastardized in the media, but the truth of it is, that's really going to be our savior for the energy needs that we're going to need to win the AI race, to stay competitive with the world, all of those things. Solar and space, Spartan Sandokar, solar and space is the cleanest future. I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because solar and space, you actually have the sun 24/7. You can set that up so you don't have the dead zones like you do for 12 hours of the day, or in places where certainly in the poles where half the year you don't have that much sun. That makes a lot more space, or that makes a lot more sense. Can keep recharging whatever you need in space. As I imagine you move data centers and these kinds of things to space, solar is going to make a lot of sense for that. But I think it's really important to have nuclear right now. When the AI race, create hyper-totalitarian surveillance state before your competitors. No, I think the reality is it's going to be, if you lose that and China gets it first, you're going to see a much harder world, a much more difficult world. And so I understand the dangers. We sort of all look at the AI race. You saw that thing about, what was it, Molt, whatever, what's it called? Basically, someone set up a forum, a chat forum, and it was just all AI agents, and they're in there, talking and starting conversations and starting religions and all these kinds of things. And, I think there's some of us who probably know how this ends, which is, it's called the Terminator. So it's a little scary, but I think the problem with us holding back is if our enemies actually get there first, they'll use those technologies against us. And so I think we got to dominate that space and then make sure it's done safely to preserve mankind. And so, it's going to be an interesting thing, also a little bit scary, but, there's no way Russia, Iran, China, they're not stopping, and we can't lose to them, is my opinion. Do you think Alberta will really try to leave Canada? I mean, obviously Alberta is very conservative state in Canada. And I don't know enough about the Canadian legal system. I do know that enough that the states do have quite a bit of autonomy from the federal government there, and so it's sort of interesting. I mean, I don't think the people in Ottawa are representing the Canadians the way so many Canadians want. And, it's a scary thing, whether it's, immigration or just lunatics, taking charge. Canada's a pretty scary place for those who believe in freedom or these things. So, I know Alberta is definitely, probably the most conservative state up there. You would have thought it would have been like the Yukon, but, even that's been taken over by a lot of definitely some leftists. But, I hope they do something to make sure that freedom and the values that we hold so dear actually remain in Canada. We should be so lucky that Alberta wants to secede and join the U.S. I think it'd be great as long as we don't end up with 2 more Liberal senators, and they'll figure out a way how to populate that in the end to prevent that election from ever happening. But again, I definitely love seeing Alberta actually finally have the balls to stand up to the insanity that's been happening in Canada. Singus 227, is Trudeau really Castro's son? I don't know, man. But if you see the pictures, I don't have any facts, but if you see the pictures, it's almost like, of course he is. Like 99%, like 99 and change percent, and they were friendly, and the whole stories of the families, and there was some interesting history in the, of the swinger kind with the Trudeaus before that. So they look almost exactly alike. The mindset seems almost exactly alike. I think Castro was clearly not a nice guy, but definitely a lot smarter than Justin Trudeau. But, I guess he still managed to become the leader of Canada somehow, which is sort of amazing from being a high school drama teacher. But, so it goes with the political elites. Let's see. Aaron Howell, keep up the hard work. I know I'm busy in my own ways, but don't afraid to reach out for something if you need anything. Stay safe out there. The kid's not my son, Fidel Jackson. It's pretty funny. Mondani's Epstein's kid. Yeah, that was a weird photo. Like a young Mondani with Jeffrey Epstein over the weekend. I don't know if that's real or not, but I saw it enough that I didn't see any, sort of community notes on it on X or whatever it was, or Truth or wherever I was seeing the pictures over the weekend. But sort of seems fitting, seeing as all the power elites of the Democrat base were in there with Epstein, and again, not just before the convictions, but also after. So a little scary, but seemingly quite fitting. Hey, great chat today as always, Don. Take good care. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, guys. I hope everyone does have a great week. Let's see. Any news on Tina Peters here in Colorado? You know what? I don't know. I know that's a woman that stood up for a lot of the election frauds. I know she was targeted. They say, oh, you're targeting non-limino. Yeah, like they were throwing innocent people for calling out things which seem to be proven to be 100% right, and throwing them in jail for years. So, I don't want to hear any of the leftist sanctimony about this. Oh, the Colorado. Okay, I'm hearing from my team the Colorado, because I was following it a little bit, but I don't know the details. But apparently, the Colorado governor, not exactly a conservative, so that's kind of interesting. Actually, a pretty ardent leftist, apparently had some pretty favorable things to say about that one. I think that one's a state one. That's not a federal thing. So, that's how they do these things. If it's not going to pass in federal, they'll go to a liberal state and make sure that they go after those places where you really can't get a jury of your peers, because you'll find a couple people in there who will just do whatever the Democrats want you to, not exactly what the law or the Constitution would allow. Let's see. Trump 2028. Thanks. My mom passed away on the 7th. She loved your family immensely. Please pass it on. Mac 2155. Thank you very much, Mac. I'm really sorry for your loss. That's terrible. And it's sad, but I hope you and your family are doing well. We're really, really sorry for you, and we'll keep you in our prayers. Will the crypto crash end? I hope so. Listen, I think these things go up and down. I think, you got a lot of crazy stuff going on. You have, a new Fed chairman being announced. You have a lot of stuff. So, I think that just creates some uncertainty in the market. But I think, certainly, the big boys, ETH, Bitcoin, I think that's going to be around. And I think, the entire world is going to start switching over to stable coins because the way you can transact, the speed of it, the ease of that, the way to do it instantly and cheaply. So obviously still a very big believer in crypto. And, obviously we do a lot in that space. And so we're very excited about that. Let's see. Okay, look, I like that. Other people in the chat, rather than just the trolls talking about it's the same old nonsense, other people saying sorry for your loss as it relates to the gentleman who lost his mom. So that's cool, guys. We could we could do a little bit more of that. There's nothing wrong with that. Stablecoin has a good future. Yeah, I believe that. I think that's going to be the way, so many transactions in the world are going to close more and more every day. So that's a big one. Let's see. Pass a message of thanks to your father for fighting the syndicate crime system and a brainwashed public. We're trying hard, guys. Again, it's why we ask you to like, share, subscribe, so people can get the stuff, so they see what's actually happening, so they hear the stories. Not the Democrat version of them and the fake, sanctimony and outrage for like the Don Lemons of the world for clearly breaking a law in a much more aggressive fashion than so many good patriotic Americans that prayed in front of, like I said, abortion clinics or whatever, that were thrown in jail for. So if they can throw those people in jail based on that fact set, pretty sure Don Lemon deserves to serve some time. But, of course, I'm sure the left will figure out how to make sure that never happens. And again, bring out the sanctimony tenfold. Let's see. Thank you and the entire Trump family for what the left has tried to pull on you. All, though, I appreciate that. It's what we do. We just keep fighting. Guess what? They're going to do it again. They're going to keep trying. They're going to start the impeachments. I'm going to get to testify again about every nonsense thing. You know what the deal, guys. You understand the playbook at this point. Like, they're going to do these things. It's just like sort of overplaying the game, myself, but we're never going to give up. So we're just going to do what we do, get out there, and we're going to fight the nonsense. Let's see. It's hard or impossible to change normie brainwashed minds. TV is programming them 100%. That's why, again, get this kind of stuff out there. Make sure people see it. The amount of people that think, oh my God, I saw it on CNN, so it must be true. It's wild that that's still the thing. I get it 10 years ago or something like that, but if you lived through COVID, if you lived through Russia, and you lived through the last decade, and you're like, yeah, you know what, it still seems like a reliable source. You got some either serious TDS or a serious shortage of IQ points. Let's see. What else we got? Never let your guard down. Be safe always. God bless. Win, 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 Trump. Thank you. Listen, that is 100%. We don't have a choice as it relates to that. You've seen what they're willing to do, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's the attempts, plural, on my father's life. Just understand, they're playing an entirely different game and entirely different rules. Obviously I would never condone violence or any of these things, but understand what the other side is willing to do. And you got to be prepared for that. I think that's, it's why I'm so pro 2A. It's why I advocate for people practicing and training and learning. That's a really big thing. Do that. Take your wife out to the range. You see what's happening even in Minnesota, right? They're telling the police to stand down. So when Nick Shirley or one of these guys, they call the cops because they're getting swarmed by a mob of angry Somalis. Well, we can't help you. They tried dragging them down the street the other day almost. We're not going to be there for that one. So as much as I love law enforcement, in some of these places where they're being told to stand down, they may not have a chance. They'll lose their jobs if they actually do what they're supposed to do. I get that. I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming the powers that be that are telling them what to do and what not to do. And so, when seconds count, oftentimes the police will be minutes away, and oftentimes they may not be able to show up because of Democrat leadership. So I think an important thing to remember, got to be able to take care of yourselves. Got to be able to sustain yourself and your family and take care of them. So do what that takes. Train, learn, stock up, be in the game. And honestly, the training part is actually really fun. It's not like, training for a marathon. The training part's actually a lot of fun and really important for the kids and family, to everyone to understand it. Once you learn that safety, it's a big deal. Everyone can learn a lot. learn to defend themselves. It's a big deal. 1,200 bots, not bad. I'm not sure what that is. Let's see. But don't address my questions about anti-2A stuff. I haven't seen any anti-2A stuff. I'm trying to read the feed going rather quickly. I think this administration's pretty pro-2A. I think there's also a lot of misinformation out there that, people put out there. They assume it's real. It goes super viral. Turns out to be nonsense, but, the outrage is there, and so they try to do that stuff. I saw that with the guy that was shot, in Minnesota. It's like, well, he was just exercising his Second Amendment rights. It's like, no, that's fine. I don't think no one's blaming him for carrying a gun. I think people should be able to do it. But if you're going to carry a gun and extra mags, and you're going to go into a crowd and agitate police and be told to left and was arrested 11 days ago and start fights and start pushing cops, that's when bad stuff happens. It's not that he can't carry a gun. You carry a gun and start agitating armed law enforcement, creating violence, starting those kinds of things, and then bad stuff happens. That's a little different. Doesn't mean he can't carry a gun. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be, pro-2A. Doesn't mean you are anti-2A if you say, well, you can't do those things too. But you are creating problems for yourselves. We all know that. We all understand it. We understand how it works. One of the basic things you have when you're getting your concealed carry permit or anything like that is, hey, maybe don't go to a drunk bar, carrying concealed. Not that you can't do it, but you get into fights and all of sudden things escalate and bad stuff happens. You could still be liable for those things. That's unfortunately the way things go. So let's see. Well, I guess with that, guys, I'm going to go get some dinner. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you have a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, again, to like, to share, to subscribe. Go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you missed the show here live. Download MXM News. Download the Rumble app on your smart TV so you can watch this with your whole family. Check out our incredible sponsors down below and in the video description. They're the brave ones who keep the show going. If they have the guts to support this programming, maybe they share your values and you should support them. So guys, stay strong, stay engaged, stay informed, and always stay a little bit triggered. So thanks a lot, guys, and I'll talk to you again on Thursday.